Hello and welcome to a special work in progress episode here on Captain's Dry Dock. And in the dry dock today, we'll be working on my thighs. No, I meant the First Order Stormtrooper armour thighs. Let's make it real. The great thing about this section of the armour is that it's simple to put together. It's just two big parts which are pretty obvious and they come together like that and they get stuck either side. And do you know what I think that's really great about this is that there's meant to be a visible seam. So no filling, sanding, painting and repeating to make sure it's seamless. There's meant to be a seam. So there we have it. There's a flange here and that gets glue there and then that goes behind that part there and it gets stuck together with clamps and magnets. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, you walk away and it should be really secure and really quite robust for all that walking you're going to be doing if you're trooping. Tell a lie, there's actually a few little pieces as well, such as the greeblies. So you've got a couple of those, they are on either side of the leg, but we know all about those. They're actually all over the armour, but these are big, massive ones, so you can't mistake them. And also, it's really clear where they're meant to be. There's actually indents in the armour itself, so you know where they're going to go. In fact, you just have to make sure which way they're orientated, but I'll deal with that later, and you'll see exactly which way they should be going. The next special part that appears on one of the thighs is the holster. Now, this is a very special aftermarket holster which didn't come with this kit. This is by a gentleman called Dan. He's German. I'm not going to pronounce his surname, but I'll give you the details down below. If you search for him, he's all over the forums on Facebook and a few other of the specialist First Order Stormtrooper websites. Now, don't get me wrong, the Imperial Surplus version, which is all solid resin, is really good, it's accurate, it just needs some sanding down. That comes with screws as well. But the difference between this one and this one is that this one is metal. Oh yeah, and the quality it's basically engineered. So if you do have a blaster and you've got the screws in the right places, this will slot on nicely onto this. Not mention the blaster, but also the pistol as well. But if you can get one of these and you can afford it, by all means, it's worth splurging, especially if you spent so much on your armor already. I love quality. Before I get cracking on the thigh armour, I want to show you the comparison between the Imperial Surplus holster compared to the aftermarket holster. Now, if I look closer at the Imperial Surplus holster, which comes with the kit, it is solid resin. It just feels quite weighty, and I did make a mistake at the introduction that actually it doesn't come with screws, because if you look closer, the screw heads are actually cast with the entire thing, so it's got all that detail there, which is pretty good. The only downside I would say about this part is that it's aesthetic, it's not functional. So these loopholes here is where your blaster or pistol with its little screw heads will slot in and stay secure, whereas there's no step to be able to do that here. So for that, it's not that great, but visually it is absolutely fine. But compare that to the aftermarket part here, it just screams out quality and functionality. So this is a resin part, but that's there to make some space between the thigh and the holster itself. And here is the pièce de résistance. Now this is nicely engineered. It feels like it's made of aluminium, and when you feel the edges, that's right, there's no burring at all, so you don't have to worry about cutting yourself or having to sand this down. And as you can see here where the screws are, that's all countersunk, and there's that step I was on about where the head of the screw or bolt goes all the way in, slots in, and is completely secure. Talking of screws, yep, it comes with a packet of screws as well. Two of them are lock-in as well, so it doesn't actually fall off any time. And yeah, so those are all the screws you need to be able to put all this together and bolt that onto your thigh armor. So just give you a comparison side by side. Again, I have no qualms with Imperial Surplus resin part. It does the job. It looks fine. However, I would say it's just for functionality. I would definitely go for the metal part. No, it's not a white well, it is one of the thighs all stuck together. And as I said before, there is the seam there, doesn't need filling. This is super easy to put together, which I was really surprised about because it's one of the biggest parts of the armor. Now, if I just show you on the inside, because it has a flange already, I don't need to put any more bracing in there because as quite a lot in there. It's about 3 or 4 centimeters worth of overlap there. So that's all stuck together with E600 glue. The reason I'm doing that and not using Araldite or plastic weld is because this will come under a lot of abuse and wear and tear as I'm walking around in it. And I want to be able to take it apart later on and fix it, because it may be the fact that one half will get damaged and the other half doesn't. So it's nice to have the option just in case. But the issue I need to focus on here is the greeblies and that sit in these indents. Now again, I can't remember which way it goes, but it doesn't matter for this purpose because I want to talk about the curvature. Now these greeblies, you can see on the side profile here, that is flat and that's going to sit on a curved surface, and as you can see, it's a bit of a seesaw. Now, even though there's an overlap here and a bit of a step, even after I take this out, that's still not going to contour to the roundness of the thigh. So I had to look at my reference, which in this case is UK's Raf, who had the same issue here, and he suggests using a hot air gun. Now, there's one or two ways of doing this, either hot air gun or pop it into the oven for a little bit. Now, I wasn't going to pop it into the oven because, again, I don't know what it's going to do to this specific resin because he hasn't got my kit. And also, I was thinking of actually sanding it, so sanding the curvature into the resin. However, that would make the look on the profile side really odd, meaning that this will be thick, thin and thick again. So I wanted to do it the hot air gun way. So yep, breaking out the hot air gun again. So there's the hot air gun. Here's my greebly, and what I need to do is put that on a surface, a heat resistant surface. Let me just zoom in there. And then once it's warm enough, I would say 20-30 seconds bursts on either side, I am then going to place that on another side, a curved metal side, heat resistant. Actually, this is a cake tin, by the way. So that's a nice curvature because you don't want to get anything too small. Otherwise, the curve of this is going to be too tight. When you put it on your thigh armor, it's going to look really odd. But this is a nice curved size. So this is a cake tin, so raid your cupboards and let's give it a go. The only thing I actually do need is a glove. Now, a heat resistant glove would be preferable, but it's winter and I've got myself a nice warm glove and it's super thick. It's not ideal, but it's going to have to do. So wish me luck. Now I'm applying a soft heat to this. I'm not going to do too much on this side. Actually, I'm not going to do that much on this side because I don't want the detail to get rounded off or deformed. So I'm going to try this side first. 30 seconds of this, and then just really, really gentle heat to the point that the edges start rounding off, because that's when I know it's probably hot enough to apply to the curvature of the cake tin. Now all I'm going to do is quickly pop that on there and push it. Oh, actually, it's really, really easy. There we go. It's not too hot. And there we go. Just hold it down. Actually, that took around about 30-40 seconds to apply, and that actually becomes very malleable. I'm really surprised about that, and you can see that's working now. So what I need to do is leave that for a bit, and as you can see, my right hand, I haven't got gloves on, but in fact it's not that hot because on this side I didn't actually apply the heat. But there you go. So I'll let that cool for a bit. That will stay in that shape, and then that will hopefully fit exactly on the radius of my thigh armor. And there we have it. So I ran this under a cold tap, popped that there, and that curves around that perfectly. Now I'm really happy with this result. Now to do the next one. Although I've added a curve to these clips, I did actually have to add some more material here because there is a slight step in between the two parts that make up the thigh armor. So all I did was got myself some styrene. I think this is just like about 1 millimeter, stuck it on, sanded it down, and so there's a nice little step there. So that will sit flush in that indent. This beautiful holster kit has all been painted and it's ready to put together. It's all been painted with the same gloss white I've been using throughout the entire build. You can see that suddenly that may look different with the different shadings, but that's only because there's different materials at play here. So you've got the 3 metal plates there, you've got the resin, and then you've got the vac form part there, which is from Imperial Surplus, and it goes directly onto the thigh. And I'll show you how this sandwich comes together. So there's the vac form part from Imperial Surplus. Then on top of that, you've got the resin part, the chunky resin bit there, and as you can see, it's sloped, so that's going downwards, and that's the top. There we go. Then on top of that, you got this base plate. There we go. And then you've got a second plate, and then you've got the final plate there. And what that does, it makes that step that you need if you want to holster your blaster or your pistol. Now, there has been a few work in progresses I've seen online where they've actually put this together incorrectly. Well, I wouldn't say incorrectly, but they use glue to hold it all together, when in fact you don't need to, because you've got all these screws and bolts. So these screws aren't aesthetic, even though they meant to look cool, but they also provide a purpose of being able to hold it all together. And like with all third-party private kits, even as good as this, they don't always come with instructions. So I got in contact with Dan, who explained to me what all these screws and bolts do. So you have these 6 small screws. So these are self-tapping, you can tell that because there's a point to them, meaning that you don't need to actually drill a hole, because these can screw directly in this case, the resin. But as I mentioned, I'm going to drill a tiny little pilot hole because it makes life easier. So you've got 6 of those. Then you've got this one. This is the lonely one here. There's no other one like it. Again, it's quite thin, it's self-tapping, it's got a rounded head to it, and it's got a washer. So that goes through there like that, and that is placed there. And what that does, I don't know yet. I don't know if it's aesthetic or if there's a function to it, but we'll find out later. So that's quite important for a detail. Now there's these 2 bad boys here. So these aren't self-tapping, they've got flat heads to them, and they go here. And what they do is a very important job. They hold the entire thing onto your thigh. So let's just picture it here. So there's the holster. Let's just pretend it's all screwed down. Then you've got the vac form plastic part, and these bolts go all the way through, and it should come all the way through out here and into your thigh armor and bolt on. And when I say bolt on, we've got 2 locking nuts, and what they look like is this. So there's a nylon washer inside there, and once that gets threaded through, that is not going to loosen up. So the reason being is that you don't want this suddenly becoming loose and you having to tighten it every time you're walking around cosplaying. But if you do make a mistake and you want to take this off, you're going to have to chuck this away, because that nylon would have been threaded and you need to replace it with something else. So it's something to bear in mind. Now there's these 2 here. Now you don't need these unless you actually are going to install a blaster or pistol into the holster. So these 2 screw into your blaster or holster. There's a certain position on there. If you don't already have one, don't have these bolts with your kit, wherever you got your blaster or pistol from, you got them here. And what they do, you screw these into your pistol blaster, and how this whole locking system works is that it goes in here, down, and there we go. Nicely locked and secured. And there's the second one, and that goes there. So you've got 2 bolts for your blaster and pistol. Now all I need to do is screw it all together. Just when I was about to screw this all down, look closer. Yes, that's not a typical hex bit. It's not a Phillips bit. There's a pin right in the middle, meaning if I use a typical hex bit, it wouldn't be able to go inside there because the pin is in the way. In fact, I had to go on Google because I've seen this feature somewhere before, and I realized it's a security feature, meaning that you can't, a standard toolbox wouldn't have these bits. So if someone wants to take apart something that you don't want taken apart, they can't do so easily unless they get something like this. Now the difference between these hex bits is that, yep, as you can see, it's hollow, so it caters for that pin, so it's able to lock in there and tighten or unscrew the screws or bolts. And in fact, when I say screws or bolts, all of them have got this feature, meaning that if you're going to get a kit like this, make sure you got yourself something like that. This is only £5 off of Amazon, but it's something to bear in mind. A very unusual feature. I'm not too sure if this is accurate to the films, but so far the guy who makes this is super accurate on everything he produces and sells, so I'm assuming that was the case. I guess the directors were just super paranoid about people just taking things apart and removing them off set. Now that the thigh armor is all completed and it looks excellent, I love this holster. So I'm going to use this as an example of how this hangs off the harness system. Now this harness system is from Geeky Pink, so it's the same manufacturer as the person who does the gaskets. And if we just zoom in here, you can see these two bits of webbing hanging off. They're around about 50mm wide, and look closer, they're just held in position with pins. And I think the reason being is because not all stormtroopers are built the same. Some other stormtroopers out there may have a little bit of timber, shall we say, more love handles. That's absolutely fine. And so sometimes this won't be in the same position as someone, let's just say, a little wider than me or even thinner than me. And so these are there temporarily, and then once it's positioned correctly for yourself, then you stitch it off, or that's what I'm going to do anyway, stitch directly onto this waist, and so it doesn't move around. So how does that attach to the thighs? Well, here's something I made earlier. So what I did, I got hold of the same width webbing, so 50mm wide. It's the same width as the webbing that I used on the torso section, and then went on eBay and got the relevant big clips, great big chunky clips, again the same size as the clips I used on the torso. And then I stitched it all together, so made sure the clip is stitched onto, I think it was the male side, yeah, the female side is stitched onto that webbing. And then I just used E6000, plastered it all over that webbing and just stuck it on the inside. And that's one of the reasons why it's a very long piece, meaning that there's more adherence and more square surface sticking to the inside, meaning it's not going to easily be pulled off. So here's a little tip. If you haven't dressed as a stormtrooper before, or even actually dressed in plastic, don't know why else you would, but you'll find that all these bits will clang and clip together. Listen. Yeah, plastic on plastic makes a lot of noise. So when I first wore my new Hope armor, I didn't realize how much of a plastic toy I sounded like as I was walking down the corridor. However, I find that using this stuff, felt with like a sticky back to it, and place it where those parts are actually banging together, mainly on the interior, because obviously you don't want to see it, helps a great deal. So if you compare this to this, that's a much better solution to just deaden that clanging plasticky sound. So I've already attached the right thigh and it worked out fantastic. And I'm going to show you the steps I've taken to be able to weave this on and attach it to the leg, because there is a good way of doing this. So this is really, really long, as you can see. Sorry for the black trousers, it's kind of camouflaging it, but there you go, it's really long. And I thought to myself, actually I might need to trim it and then sew it, but in fact there's a method, there's a reason why this is long, I reckon anyway. So here is my plastic clip. I'll just weave it all the way through here, very much like how you weave your rucksack clip. They're very similar, and in fact exactly the same, and then back round, so it's a nice loop. There you go. And so this means that this is going to be adjustable, which is a good reason why. I know I'm not going to grow anytime soon, so why would I need to adjust it? And I'll show you the reason why. So if I just do that, so there we go, there is my clip ready to take the thigh armor. So this thigh armor has its female clip ready. What I do is just feed my leg through it, make sure I've got hold of that buckle, and then this is going to be a little bit loose, so it's a little bit low down, and it's easy for me to locate and snap. Listen to this. Yeah, that satisfying snap. That's a bit low down, but all I have to do now is just pull this cord until it's adjusted to the right level. So it's not as if like this is permanent, this is adjustable, and it makes it so much easier to adjust when you put it on, and then I'll tuck it under here. Now I think I might put some Velcro on this side so it doesn't flop out like that as I'm cosplaying or trooping, but for the time being, yeah, I'll just tuck it in here, and then when I'm ready I'll Velcro those on, and there we go. I almost forgot, the blaster, does it fit into the holster? Now, I made this blaster quite a while ago. In fact, the video link is down below on the entire build of this with its electronics. Listen to this.
This E11D blaster rifle is now operational.
Yes, I know it's F11, but I need to change that. So, oh, look at that. Sorry, I'm showing off a bit, but if you want to see the build of this particular blaster, the link is down below, and there we go. So let's actually try to see if it fits into the holster. But remember, I haven't checked that these bolts are the right distance apart to fit in those grooves. Let's give it a try. Oh, that feels so good, and it looks great as well. Now I need to adjust those bolts. They need to be slightly closer together, but for a first attempt, bear in mind that wasn't made to measure to this particular holster. It's great. And do you know what? I'm going to make sure I'm going to bring those bolts together because it is actually really practical as well. Because can you imagine? You're at a cosplay event, you're at Comic Con, and you need to put your blaster down. And the problem is, as you know, if you are a trooper, you put your blaster down, you're worried it might get damaged or even stolen. Not saying that happens usually, but you want to have it on your persons all the time. But this holster is actually really practical for those type of events, especially when you want to drink your beer. So, fantastic addition to this armor. Get yourself this holster if you want to have practicality and you love quality engineering all the way from Germany. So I did not need to go to the gym for my 2022 New Year's resolution to get sexy legs because I've got Stormtrooper legs, and look at those thighs, they're fantastic. In fact, this was the most straightforward, easy, and most enjoyable part of the entire build. I think by this stage, I've got so used to putting things together, the painting process, that's one of the reasons why it did come together so quickly. I thought this was going to be really hard to work out, but in fact, it was very intuitive, so hopefully that will help you. And bear in mind, this is the Geeky Pink's harness as well as gaskets, so whatever system you choose, it may be different from what I'm doing right now. But as my conclusion, this is really comfortable. I mean, they're not rubbing together. I haven't got a little bit of the thigh gap there. They just hang on the front. They actually look pretty good as well. So I look like a rugby player, but with armour. But no, I think I might wear this the rest of the afternoon. Look, I can even run in it. So when you see the movies, you can see how agile they are in their Stormtrooper outfit. I know it might change once I put the kneecaps on and the calf muscle armor on and everything else, but considering how big these pieces are, they're really maneuverable and I love it. Thank you for joining me on this episode. It was a really fun build. I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you've subscribed, thank you very much. If you haven't, just click on the button down below. And we are almost there in completing this armor. I think there must be about 2 or 3 episodes to go. I may be wrong, but the big stuff has been done. Anyway, in the meantime, my name's John Child. This is Captain's Dry Dock. These are my sexy legs. And I'll see you on the next episode. You take care.